UFC 310 was the final pay-per-view of the year. And while you want to go out with a bang and you want to end the year with a good pay-per-view, it's been a solid year overall. That's not quite what we got. We got some prelims that set the stage for an exciting main card, but we got a whole bunch of decisions, a couple of sketchy ones, and a weird night in general. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to recap the entire UFC 310 fight card. Before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets, baby. We cleaned up. We had a phenomenal night. Big Ange was almost a clean sweep. I only missed one single bet. And yeah, I was a couple of little gifts in the decisions there, but I only missed one bet. Jakey Boy missed a few bets, but he still put up over 3 units of profit. The boys at We Want Picks gave you a 37% combined ROI. I gave you 61% ROI, and I only missed one single bet. This was a very, very good night. But it wasn't just tonight that was a good night betting-wise. We've been absolutely crushing it. I'm up 13 of the last 14 fight cards or something absurd like that. The safety parlay is now 8 of the last 9. 80% ROI from one single bet, and this year is not over. We have UFC Tampa next weekend. If you want to unlock all the picks, all the bets, and ride this train through the new year, you can do so now. It's only freaking $10. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It's $10. You'll unlock all the picks, all the bets, all the round line leans, anything you could ever want or need heading into a fight week. You also get tools. One of those tools is the Data Analyzer. The Data Analyzer is loaded with fight events clean through 2025. Every fighter on every card, all the stats, the data, and the information you could ever want or need. All of this right now on the website, WeWantPicks.com. Let's talk about the fights. It started as a pretty favorite heavy card. We also started with a whole bunch of finishes. This was the first fight of the night. Kennedy Nzechukwu in his second fight at heavyweight. He looked okay. It was a typical Kennedy Nzechukwu fight. Wasn't very busy, didn't do a ton, and then finally landed clean, folded the dude, and won by knockout. And the announcers were like, the rise, the ascension of Kennedy Nzechukwu at heavyweight. The dude beat a guy who broke his knee after not fighting for 2 years, and then knocked out a dude who has one single win in his last 5 fights. Like, I thought Kennedy Nzechukwu was going to win. The whole world thought he was going to win. He did exactly what he was supposed to do in this situation. But I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for him at heavyweight. The reality is he actually was hit a few too many times, started styling like he was doing something. Ultimately, he got the knockout. He knocked out a pretty chinny guy. I like Kennedy Nzechukwu. I want him to do well. My biggest issue with him is he doesn't really let his hands go. He takes too long. He starts to feel himself when he's not really in a position to be doing that. He's got all the physical attributes. He hits like a freight train. He's super long. He's big, even for heavyweight. I think we need a couple more fights out of him to really know what this means for him and the division. But ultimately, he did exactly what he was supposed to do and what the odds said he would do. And then we had Chase Hooper taking on Clay Guida. This is exactly what I expected to happen. Chase Hooper was a minus 1,200 favorite. I bet him when he was a minus 700 favorite. And there are other people in the inner circle of We Want Picks who were going nuts saying, those are bad odds. Chase Hooper might not win this fight. There's no value in that. How could you do that? Not only was there value in it, I got him at minus 700. Keep in mind, he closed at minus 1,200. Not only was there value in the minus 700, there realistically was value in minus 1,200. Chase Hooper looked phenomenal. This was a rematch. We talked about it all week. The two of them grappled at Fury Grappling Championship, and Chase Hooper did to Clay Guida there what he did here. But here's a couple of improvements. Now, let's keep in mind, he was fighting a 42-year-old man, but Chase Hooper's hands look better than they have ever looked before, and his wrestling looked pretty good too. He shot the takedowns. And once it was on the ground, it was game over, but we knew that was going to happen. The hands looking good is what was surprising. Clay Guida came out, does what Clay Guida does, stays busy. What was funny is a few times Clay Guida got on some deep singles, almost had takedowns. Then as soon as Chase Hooper was threatening a submission, he was like, oh shit, let go, backed out. But it's just built in it's in his bones. He needs to come forward, be busy, shoot takedown. So ultimately, Chase Hooper smoked an old man. I get it. But he looked good doing it. And the hands absolutely seem to be improving. And the two biggest gaps in Chase Hooper's career are his hands and his takedowns. The jiu-jitsu was always there. The toughness was always there. And he really looks to be like physically filling out. It's like watching a little boy grow up. Like, oh, I haven't seen you since Thanksgiving. You've gotten so big, boy. He's thickening up. He's growing up. The hands are getting good. The takedowns looked okay. I'm very curious to see what they start to do with Chase Hooper. I do think the big mistake the UFC tends to make is they speed people up, right? They'll slow roll you. You'll get a couple of wins. You'll start to build a fan base, and then boom, they shoot you to the top because they want to do a cheap fight night main event, or they want to just very quickly get something out of you. And then you get rushed a little too soon. You have a few losses. All of a sudden, that stock goes down. Chase Hooper's stock's finally starting to go back up. They rushed him early. And that's how he got beat by Steve Garcia. And that's how he got bullied a few times. They rushed him early. Now his stock's going up, building a personality, a couple of quality wins. Don't rush him. Let him keep getting wins like this for a little bit. Let him grow up. Build a fan base around him and see what he becomes. Then we had Michael Chiesa beating Max Griffin. Listen, I picked Michael Chiesa. I picked Michael Chiesa when he was an underdog. Okay, everybody go back 2 weeks, watch the quick pick video, lock in the odds when I gave you that pick. All the picks I gave you, the odds were far better than, even the ones I got wrong, but the odds were far better than, including when I picked underdog Michael Chiesa. I felt like he could come forward, get the wrestling done, and win the fight. And honestly, in the first round, it was the easiest, most obvious pick on the planet. Then Michael Chiesa started to show his age and his unathleticism. Michael Chiesa is not fast. He's not athletic. He's not super good at anything. His takedowns are mediocre. Striking is less than mediocre, but he is tough, he is gritty, and he will stick with it. With all of that being said, this was less about Michael Chiesa winning the fight and more about Max Griffin giving it away. Yes, ultimately Michael Chiesa won by submission, but Max Griffin didn't do much. Michael Chiesa in the first round got the takedown, backpacked him, had him in trouble, did all sorts of stuff. Fine, no problem, get it. But the second round, Max Griffin was on the feet, landing clean. Michael Chiesa's takedowns. Daniel Cormier was literally making fun of how shitty they were. He said, this guy's just bending over with both arms, reaching out. And that's exactly what it was. Michael Chiesa's takedowns are not good. And in the second round, instead of piecing together combinations and staying in Michael Chiesa's face and making him pay, Max Griffin just staring at him like this. Just staring at him, not committing, not doing anything. And all that did was give Michael Chiesa forward momentum, give him confidence, and give Michael Chiesa what he needed to squeeze out this win. And ultimately, Max Griffin ended up, I don't want to say quitting in the third round, but he didn't do everything he needed to do to try to survive. Then we had Cody Durden taking on Josh Van. Cody Durden was Jacob's underdog lock of the week. Jacob made a fortune with or without this bet. But we were all rooting for Cody Durden. I picked him as well, but I wasn't quite as confident that he would win straight up, so I did the plus 3.5, meaning I bought some points on the scorecards, and I thought Cody Durden could win at least one round. And early on, that's what we had, right? First round seemed like a Cody Durden round to me. One judge didn't give it to him. Surprising. First round seemed like a very big Cody Durden round to me. Pretty straightforward. Had the takedowns, had the control. Seemed to be frustrating Josh Van with the takedowns. 3.5 minutes of control in one round. Multiple takedowns. And he seemed to have some success striking. But then, all of a sudden, which was very uncharacteristic of Cody Durden, he gasses. He had no gas. And what was odd, let me know if you caught this, what was odd is the corner work in between the first round and the second round. Cody Durden's corner was basically saying, hey, before you shoot, whatever it was, use the footwork, pump the jab, keep your energy up. You can conserve your energy and then shoot. Almost as if they were worried about his cardio. Listen, Cody Durden without cardio sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. Cody Durden thrives with the pace, with the pressure, the forward momentum. The not stopping is where he thrives. It's not like he hits like a freight train and has the best takedowns in the world so he can get by with not having the best cardio. No, he's a grinder. So for Cody Durden to come out here in the second round and be completely gassed, just to get dotted. He's tough, so he didn't quit, but just to get dotted up, not have the energy needed to move the feet, shoot a better takedown, or make something happen is tough. It was a tough watch. He started to rally a little bit early in the third, at the end of the second, because he just basically was too tired to wrestle, so he just stuck with his hands. And his hands aren't terrible, but it's not going to win the fight. So Cody Durden ended up getting pieced up the last 2 rounds, but because he got exhausted. And that's not like him. Does that seem weird to you? Was anybody else surprised by that? I just felt like we were watching that scene like, is this dude tired already? That's not like him, right? There's fighters we know that get tired. Cody Durden wasn't one of them, and I don't know what that was about. But if that's his career, if he's the guy who gets tired after the first round, he's not going to have much more success. You could take away 3/4 of his wins if he only has one round of good cardio, because his whole thing is cardio and pressure and pace. Oh, I missed the first take, I'll shoot another. Missed that, I'll shoot another. 8 takedowns later, he finally has you. And then he's still coming and still moving and still working. Cody Durden without cardio is a PFL Cody Durden. Then we had Eryk Anders finishing Chris Weidman in the second round. I'm glad I switched my pick. For UFC 309, when they were supposed to fight originally, I picked Chris Weidman. Said he's fighting at Madison Square Garden. He's had some time to heal up. I think he's going to get it done. The energy seems up, all the things. But then coming into this fight, it was a very different situation. He did not get paid his show money when the fight was canceled last time. He was frustrated with the UFC. He was no longer fighting at Madison Square Garden with his friends and his family and his old team and all the things. Now he was just fighting a giant Division I football player who was telling us that he was in the best shape of his life. So I flipped the pick. I went with Eryk Anders. I didn't quite bet Eryk Anders straight up, though. What I did do was inside the distance decision, no action, because in my mind, I said, well, of the two of these men, Eryk Anders is certainly the more durable. But it didn't look like it, because in the first round, Chris Weidman, nice short left hook, cracks Eryk Anders. Eryk Anders drops. Luckily, he does survive, and he is tough, but it was dicey. He lost the first round. He was almost finished, was straight up dropped. And I was like, great, here we go. The only way I could lose this bet is if a pretty durable Eryk Anders gets finished, and it looks like he's about to get finished. And luckily, that didn't happen. What did happen, though, is he picked himself up by his bootstraps, came out in that second round, and just bullied Chris Weidman. And the big mistake Chris made, which is surprising considering he's a former world champion, but the big mistake Chris made was he kept going back to the left hook well. He connected in the first round. That's what dropped Eryk Anders. So then he tried it again and again and again. And he was just spamming left hooks, just assuming he was going to find another one and finish the fight. And that's when Eryk was able to take over, ultimately got on top. And I will say, I hate to say this, I absolutely love Chris Weidman. He quit. I genuinely hate to say it. He quit. I mean, Eryk Anders was like landing 1, 2, here's 3. It wasn't like ba, 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 ba. It wasn't a flurry. It wasn't elbows. It was like 1, slow, didn't have his own energy to just go ballistic on top. And at a certain point, Weidman just turned to his side like, all right, ref, come on, let's get this over with. So tough to see, man. It's tough to see. Dude, this is not a sport for the young. It just isn't. It is, however, a sport for the weight missers. The penalties are not harsh enough. Listen, I picked Bryan Battle to win. I didn't quite bet him here, because I just felt like Randy Brown is a good fighter. And if Bryan moved forward with the reckless abandon in this fight as he did in previous fights, he was going to get dotted up. And you know what? In that first round, that's kind of what happened. Randy Brown had a takedown. Randy Brown was having the cleaner striking. And then Bryan Battle ultimately took over. It's, guys, 2 o'clock in the morning. I might mess up a word or two. Bryan Battle ultimately took over in the second and the third round. I thought this was a close fight. A split decision. It's funny because when you watch the vlog, you'll understand the chaos that was my house during this card. This was peak chaos. Like, this was right when we had 5 families over. This was right when everybody walked into my house. And I saw the first round. Second and third, I'm like half looking, half doing this. And I just felt like Randy won. I was expecting his hand to get raised. And when it didn't, I texted Jacob and I said, was that a robbery? And he said, no, it's pretty clear Bryan won that. So I went back and I watched, and it's like, okay, knowing the result obviously skews your opinion. But I could see there was some cage control, some forward pressure. Like, Bryan Battle seemed to have some of the better moments. But here's the reality. Let's rewind to Friday when Bryan Battle missed weight by many pounds. That's a problem. That's a problem. And I won't say that it gave him an advantage in this fight because, you know, there's rumors that he's going through a divorce and this and that, and he's in a bad place mentally, and that's why he missed weight. Fine, right? It wasn't a sleazy weight miss, which we've seen before. People miss weight on purpose. I'll take the 20% and I'll keep my energy up. That's not what this was. But the penalty's not harsh enough. I have solved the weight miss problem. We've talked about this before, but clearly taking 20 or 30% of somebody's purse isn't enough to prevent people from missing weight. So what they need to do is, yes, take a chunk of that money, give it to the opponent, and also take a point away. Take a full point away. So now they're going into that fight already down. They're already down. And yes, obviously if they win by stoppage or expected to win by stoppage, that won't matter. But you take a full point away, Bryan Battle doesn't win this fight anymore, does he? So not only did he lose 20 or 30% of his purse, he also doesn't get his win bonus. He gets a loss on his record or a draw. And I think the penalty just needs to be more severe because obviously he didn't want to miss weight, but he did miss weight. And he just lost a couple of bucks. But he made it on the other side because he won this fight. So we got to figure something out with the weight misses. I don't think it's an excuse. I don't think that's why Randy Brown lost. But certainly, I feel like Bryan didn't take it serious enough. Then we had a surprisingly good showing from Aljamain Sterling. A lot of people underestimated him, me included. I thought Movsar Evloev was going to absolutely mollywop Aljamain. I thought he was going to take him down at will, do whatever he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. But that's not really what we had, was it? We had Aljamain Sterling, who looked like the better offensive wrestler. Certainly he had the better takedowns. Aljamain Sterling had better takedowns than Movsar Evloev. And if my body could reincarnate itself, go back in time and tell me that, right? I could be looking at myself in the future and it would say, hey, Angelo, UFC 310, Aljamain Sterling's going to have better takedowns than Movsar Evloev. I would tell myself to fuck off. I would not believe it. It just wouldn't make any sense. It still doesn't make sense that this is what happened. But it is what happened. Aljamain Sterling was picking up Movsar, dumping him on his head, very clearly out-wrestling him, but only with the takedowns. What he couldn't do was out-scramble. And that was the difference here. First round was a full Aljamain backpack moment. Full backpack. I don't know how many minutes. Maybe it was 3. Felt like 20. He was on straight up Movsar Evloev's back and couldn't be shaken off. Ultimately, towards the end, about a minute left, a little less than a minute, Movsar ends up winning a scramble, and he has Aljamain in a crucifix. So some of the judges said, you know what? That's enough for me. He did more damage. He was in the better position. And second and third round was a little more the same. Aljamain would get a beautiful takedown. Then we'd have a scramble situation. Movsar would win the scramble, end up on top. And when he was on top, he was working. He was doing more. Aljamain was kind of camping out, happy with the control, happy he got the takedown, where Movsar was doing a little more work. So he's winning the scrambles, doing more work when he ended up on top. And that's ultimately what gave him the decision. It felt close. I was shocked it wasn't a split. It felt close. A unanimous was surprising to me. It felt like a much closer fight than what the judges gave us. Then we had the first upset win on the card. And thank God I faded the shit out of this. Jacob actually picked Vicente Luque to win. And I looked at this and I was like, listen, if Themba's going to come in here and he's going to wrestle his little ass off like he did in his previous fights, Themba could win this fight. We have seen Vicente Luque be taken down before. We've seen Vicente Luque get out-wrestled before, so it could be more of the same. But this is the best opponent he has ever had. And I'm not going to bet on this guy at minus 300 against the best opponent he has ever had. Not doing it. So I avoided the hell out of this. And that's why picks and bets are different things. If you watch the videos and you take every pick and you treat all the picks equally, well, that's on you. Because this was a low confidence pick that I did not bet on. Chase Hooper, confident pick that I did bet on. See the difference? And what did we get? We got Vicente Luque, landed a clean punch. You're going to see that he won by anaconda choke. That was after he had Themba Gorimbo in a lot of trouble. He dropped him, had him in a lot of trouble, then pounced and straight up put him unconscious. I don't think he tapped. He was just straight up unconscious, out cold. So Vicente Luque just reminding people there are levels to this. And even though I'm a little old and my brain was bleeding just a few years ago, he's got a little gas left in that tank. It'll be interesting to see what this does to Themba. I'll tell you what I think it does. I think his next couple of fights, he's going back to the wrestling real quick. The way he got dropped, the trouble he was in as early as it was, he's going back to the wrestling real quick. I think he started to feel himself. Got a couple of big wins in a row. Started to do well. Obviously, just a couple of years ago, as we all talked about, he had the apartment bought for him by The Rock. And these guys on top of the world. Hung around a little too long on the feet. Fought the best fighter he's ever fought. The best striker he's ever fought. The most highly ranked fighter ever. Like, everything was a perfect storm for Themba. And it just didn't seem like he took it serious enough and he paid the ultimate price. It was super fast. I mean, we're talking under 1 minute in the first round. And unless you were going to dive at legs instantly. But, you know, it is what it is. This is what happens. You step up in competition and this is the risk you run. Also, this fight sucked. And anybody bragging about, Reyes was a lock. Told you Reyes was going to win. These are not the moments to brag. These are not the moments to brag, dude. Dominick Reyes looked like shit. He looked like shit. Anthony Smith just happened to look shittier. That's what we got here. And what was my whole thing? This is a low-level shitty fight, and Dominick Reyes should not be a minus 400 favorite. And yes, he won the fight by finish. So on the surface, if you're just looking at topology, looking at green and red dots, oh, he was a huge favorite. He should have been. That's not what we got, though. Early on, this was a competitive fight, wasn't it? Anthony Smith was in his face, landing clean, pretty tough. Then all of a sudden, Anthony Smith dealing with some demons, had some personal stuff going on. It literally was like he was like, hit me. Go ahead, hit me. And he ended up paying the price for that. But the reality is, I'm not convinced that Dominick Reyes is any good yet. I'm still not convinced. So what has he done after his 4-fight knockout losing streak or his 3-fight knockout losing streak? What did he do? Caught Dustin Jacoby, and we'll find out next week if Dustin Jacoby's chin is full-blown gone or not. And then beat an old, slow Anthony Smith. And yeah, on me, right? I thought Anthony Smith had a chance. And early it looked like he did, and then quickly it looked like he didn't. So Anthony Smith, sports passing him up. It is what it is. This is the natural evolution. Eventually, you're just too old for this sport. And then we had the main card opener. As clearly as I can say this for anybody that'll listen, Nate Landwehr sucks. He sucks. He's not good at fighting. He sucks. Or at least his skills aren't there. But we knew that, right? Nobody broke down this fight and said, Nate Landwehr is the better fighter. Nate Landwehr is the more technical striker. Nobody said any of those things. What we did say was, Nate Landwehr's a dog. He'll move forward. He'll push a pace. And what I also said was, I'm not touching these odds. And thank God I didn't, because the Korean Superboy made this look easy. He made this look so easy. Just absolutely bullied this fool, took him down, tossed him around, won the striking exchange. He's kicking the calf. Nate's spinning around. It was embarrassing for Nate. This is an embarrassing performance for Nate. And this fight never should have been on the main card. Ever, never, ever, ever. In a surprising twist, the Aljamain Movsar fight was way more exciting. And this wasn't necessarily a boring fight, but it was one-sided. It wasn't competitive. Neither one of these guys are ranked. It means nothing for the division. It means nothing for anybody. This was a useless burn fight to put on the main card. Movsar should have been in this spot with Aljamain. Aljamain showed up and put on a show. But let me remind, Choi, technically 2 wins in a row, should be 3. Just 2 fights ago, he was beating Kyle Nelson. They took a point away, and it ended up being a draw. But it could be a 3-fight win streak, right? Did the mandatory military service. All of a sudden, Choi is looking pretty good. So I am curious to see what they do for him next. Because Choi was a guy that was on the ascension, showed up in the UFC, was doing really well. Then they gave him too much too soon. He was very insanely young. And they gave him a couple of killers, and he lost those fights, didn't pass those tests. Had to leave, came back multiple years later. It was a whole thing. But now here he is, couple wins in a row. And Nate's not good, right? Nate doesn't have the skills, but he is tough. He is a guy that will grind you and break you down if he can. And Choi had none of it. So I think the train has come to a full and complete stop, and it's safe to exit. And we'll find out how good Choi is or isn't in his next couple of fights. And then we had exactly what I thought we would have. I mean, this is exactly what I thought we would have. I've been shitting on Kron Gracie for weeks. This dude, the last rant I went on was essentially about this guy should not be in the UFC. The fact that the UFC is the pinnacle of this sport, the brand of this sport. People call the sport UFC. They don't call it mixed martial. They call it UFC fighting. That's what normal people who aren't fans of this call it. This is the pinnacle of the sport. And if you've never seen a fight before and you sit down, you watch this fight, that's a Gracie. People know the name still. That's a Gracie. And he's just laying on his back like a useless turd. Useless turd. Gets taken down exactly where he wants to be. I'm Kron Gracie. I want to be on the ground. He's exactly where he wants to be. What's he doing? Fuck all. At one point, maybe an armbar. Maybe a triangle. A minute later, nothing. Okay. And then he just gets smoked. Yeah, Bryce Mitchell slammed him to the ground with an elbow. That I don't know if the slam did it, the elbow did it, or the elbows after the slam with the elbow did it. But ultimately, Bryce Mitchell got the finish. It honestly was really easy. It looked pretty easy. It looked straightforward. This was not an exciting fight by any means, but it was a pretty easy win for Bryce Mitchell, as it should have been. I mean, this was the easiest pick in the card. The reason the caption here says Wolf tickets is because that's the bullshit that Kron Gracie was selling. What was he saying in the press conference? Doing his best Diaz impression. Oh, I don't care where I am on the card. No, fight's a fight. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to get it over with. Yeah, you got it over with. You sure did. Then he had a little bit of self-awareness the next day at the press conference. My last performance was the worst performance in the world. I know that. I'm better now. You're not better. Striking still looked like it sucked. His ground game is from 1993. He did nothing. Created no scrambles. Did nothing. It was a 1993 ground game. And I don't care what bumfuck town Bryce Mitchell's from. He's at least evolving. So Bryce Mitchell, we all thought he would win, and he did. And it was pretty straightforward. At one moment of like, uh-oh, with an arm bar, and that's about it. Then we had, listen, I don't know what I have done to please the MMA gods. I've done something. I don't know what. And if I did know what, I would continue to do it. But I have done something. Because the absolute streak that we've been on is unbelievable. And a lot of you who watch our channel, these recap videos are a little different. We get a lot of random people watch the recap videos. But a lot of the people who watch our normal stuff, right? My videos get anywhere from 15 to 20,000 views each. The one by myself, the one with Jacob. We're getting 350,000 to 550,000 views a month, depending on the month and the quality of the fight cards. A lot of those people are repeat views. So they have seen the streak that I've been on. The unbelievable, up 13 of the last 15 fight cards. Something insane like that. They've seen the streak. And I've pleased the MMA gods along the way because the safety parlay continues to deliver. And it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have. I didn't think Gon won this fight. But I'll take it. I will take it. We've all been screwed in the past. We've all been screwed in the past. Somebody right now bet on Volkov, and they got screwed. And in the future, they'll be on the other side. They will get a screwed decision. So it all works itself out. But somehow, I have pleased the MMA gods, and they continue to deliver for me because I didn't think Gon won this fight. Listen, Gon might be the biggest heavyweight fraud we have seen in a long time. This guy showed up flat-footed, still cannot defend a takedown to save his life. Fake bullshit jiu-jitsu. That third round was the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. Let me hold on to the arm. I'm still going to keep my hips completely folded for some stupid ass reason. Then I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to step the leg over and pretend I'm going for an arm bar when every single fucking person in this arena and watching on TV knows I will never get an arm bar in this situation. Ever. And he held on to it for 4 minutes. Some of the most insane, basic, hasn't evolved bullshit I've ever seen in my entire life. Ciryl Gane did not win this fight. He didn't. He didn't. He did not win this fight. You want to give him a round? Sure. Sure, give him a round. He did not win this fight. What was interesting was the Alexander Volkov wrestling game plan. I sat here, I gave you the statistics. He hadn't had a single takedown since 2020. 4 years since his last takedown. And he came into this fight looking like an Nurmagomedov. And I get it. I get it. Francis Ngannou took Ciryl Gane down. John Jones took him down. So Volkov's big ass like, I'm going to do it too. Here's where Volkov messed up though. First of all, Ciryl Gane was not his normal, mobile, incredible in and out self. He was flat-footed. He gassed. And he still can't defend a takedown. He learned nothing new. Still cannot defend a takedown. And Volkov could have won this fight if he was busier. If he was busier on the feet. Let his hands go. Just kept pressuring Gane forward. Stayed in his face. This was a flat-footed Gane. This wasn't the counter-striking magician we've seen before. And Volkov is a top 10 guy and has been for 15 years. He should have read that. He should have been like, he's not moving the way he normally moves. I'm just going to stay in his face. And if he did that, he would absolutely won this fight. I still think he won the fight, but obviously the judges didn't. Maybe he needed a little more success on his feet. But, I mean, Gane had a few moments on the feet, but nothing crazy. I don't think Gane won this, but honestly, I don't think that's the consensus because I was getting texts from another person, I won't say who, that said I thought Gane was up 2-0 going into the third round. And I was like, who? What? Who's up 2-0? So we completely disagreed. But that does mean there's another human being on this planet that saw the fight the way as the judges. So it was two of the judges and this other human being. Then we had the co-main event of the evening. A couple things. One, this didn't quite deliver what we thought it would be. But sometimes that's what you get when you get two very high-level fighters. So compliments to Ian Garry for defending all of the cage takedowns. There wasn't a single takedown against the cage. So Ian Garry's hips and the way that he was able to work the defense against the cage, phenomenal. Phenomenal stuff. But now to dog him a little bit, he did nothing. He did nothing. Ian Garry did nothing until the 5th round. Nothing. He just was waiting and waiting. And I know Ian Garry's a wait kind of guy, a counter strike, but he was just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then we get pressure up against the cage, and then he's defending. They would break, and he's just waiting. Oh, here's one jab. Oh, here's a leg kick. Oh, look how fast I am. And nothing. So Ian Garry can watch this fight back and hate it for the rest of his life. Because it's not as if he got smoked by a much better fighter, right? That happens. There's always somebody better, and there'll always be somebody better. But that's not what happened. And clearly, Shavkat won this fight. It was very straightforward. The judges had it closer than I did. I thought it was 4-1 at best. The judges had it 3-2. Fine. But Shavkat moved forward, pushed against the cage, controlled what was going on. When he finally got off the cage and shoot open mat takedowns, he got those too. In fact, I think he got every single open mat takedown that he attempted. So Shavkat looked pretty good. He didn't look like a killer. He didn't look like an animal. Didn't look like the 18-0, never seen a decision guy, but he looked good. And that's what he needed to do. He also survived craziness in the 5th round because he had his back taken. He shot a clean takedown, tried to shuck the head. His hand slipped off, and Ian Garry took his back. They end up on the ground, and Ian Garry had his back. Full choke in. And it was odd because Shavkat didn't even seem like he looked worried about it because he looked like he couldn't breathe, but he wasn't like panicking. He was worrying about the foot and not the hand. And we're like, what are you doing? This is crazy. You've won this fight. All you have to do is not get choked out right now and you're good. And it looked like he might have gotten choked out. It was like, oh my God. But ultimately he ended up working out. Shavkat won this fight. He deserved to win the fight. Wasn't wildly exciting, but sometimes that's what you get with two very high level guys. So the biggest takeaways here are Ian Garry needs to be a little busier with the striking. And my eyes are incredibly dry because it is now 1:35 in the morning, so it is what it is. And the other big takeaway is Shavkat has cardio. He went 5 full rounds, looked like he could have kept going. Never slowed down once. He was the one pressuring forward. He was the one pushing the pace. He was the one grappling. Ian Garry was the one backing up, doing almost nothing. So Shavkat, a guy that we were worried about his cardio, never seen a decision before, not only went to a decision, but had plenty of cardio and was a full 25 minutes. Now we're going to do Shavkat versus Belal. Man, when that fight was over, I said, I think Belal beats him. Before that fight, when it was Belal versus Shavkat to originally happen, I said, I think Belal's going to beat him. And then they did the face-off in the cage. Belal was wearing shoes. Shavkat was not, and Shavkat was massive compared to Belal. Massive. So now I'm not quite as sure. But I will say, whoever shoots first has more success. It is much easier to finish takedowns than it is to defend them. And we saw that on this card. We saw plenty of fighters shoot first and get takedowns when they were the lesser wrestlers. So we'll see what happens with the Shavkat-Belal Muhammad fight, but I don't think this takes stock away from Shavkat, and a lot of people are going to sit here and pretend that it does. He just fought an incredibly high-level guy. They have trained together before, and Ian Garry was defense the whole time. Defense. See how hard it is to submit or finish somebody when the only thing they're doing is trying not to be submitted, trying not to be taken out. He wasn't trying to do anything offensively, just trying not to have things happen to him. And then we had the main event of the evening. This was very straightforward. This is exactly what I thought would happen. The other half of the safety parlay, we made a bag on this fight. Jacob had a couple units on Pantoja. I had Pantoja in the safety parlay. And Jacob threw a couple of bucks on the under 2.5. And you could see here from the left side of the screen, the under 2.5. Absolutely crushed. And that's what was going to happen the whole time, right? We had a guy coming down 10 pounds, which that didn't look to be an issue at all. But we had a guy leave a ring for a cage, which is a huge difference, and leave a promotion without wrestlers to come into a promotion to fight maybe the best wrestler in this division, at least right now with Muhammad Mokaev not in it. So Alexandre Pantoja looked good. He looked very good. He landed some big, clean strikes. There was a few moments where he looked like he rocked, even dropped Kai Asakura. Obviously, the takedowns were great, and once he got on the ground, the grappling difference was tremendous. But Kai Asakura had a couple of moments early. He kept doing a giant jump knee, just flying knee, jump right up the middle, boom, knee, and it was hitting Pantoja. It was hitting him, and it was hitting him good. I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to get slept on the way in. And luckily, he was able to survive and never even looked wobbled, but there was some big, huge knees flying right up the middle. So a couple takeaways. One, Pantoja's very good. He was supposed to win this fight. He was a minus 260 favorite, and he did win this fight. Congratulations. Two, Kai Asakura's fun. He's got some swag. He has some aura. He was smiling. He's flashy. The UFC brought him in. He didn't win the belt. Fine. Totally fine. But they can still do some really fun stuff with this guy. Give him fights like against Alex Perez. Give him fights against people. He's already fought Manel Kape twice and lost. Give him fights against people who aren't going to try to take him down. Because he's a fun guy with a ton of swag, a ton of aura, and maybe he could work his way back to a title shot legitimately this time by beating actual contenders in the promotion. But for now, Alexandre Pantoja continues to be the flyweight champion of the world. That was his third title defense, which is a remarkable statistic. He'll never get all the way to Demetrius Johnson's, which was like 8 or 9 or something freaking crazy. But he's on his way of cementing himself as one of the best flyweights of all time. Overall, decent card, nothing amazing. UFC Tampa, though, will be a very good card. And if you want results like these, the results that you're looking at right now are from tonight, from UFC 310. We crushed this card. 37% ROI combined. I gave you 61. Jacob gave you 28. Combined 37% ROI. Safety parlay hit again for the 8th time of 9. From the 8th time of 9. That's not very well worded, but 8 of the last 9 events, the safety parlay won with an 80% return on your investment. These are not accidents, right? One card is a lucky card. 8 of 9, that's not lucky. Up 13 the last 15 weeks. That's not luck. That's hard work. That's determination. That's drinking your own champagne, using your own tools. One of those tools is the data analyzer. I use this tool all the time. This will give me the tapes that I need to watch. Some fighters, you don't need to watch tape. I don't need to watch tape on Anthony Smith. Maybe I should have. But some fighters, you do need to watch some tape. Remind yourself, how did that fight go? Check out the stats. And all of that is available in one single tool called the Data Analyzer, available right now, along with the picks and the bets, as well as the artificial intelligence. Every single thing that we offer is only $10. One package, $10. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. We have UFC Tampa next week, UFC 311 after the jump, UFC Vegas 101 after the jump. There are no weeks off. We have future bets. The tools are loaded up for the future. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Guys, thank you so much for everything. Staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning to record this, edit it, upload it, just to wake up in the morning and do it again for the next week is only worth it because of you guys and the comments and the feedback. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the watch.